Good morning to you. Good morning. Are you well? It's Tuesday morning. It's the 17th of December 2019. Yeah, we're a week till Christmas Eve, eh? Till Santa comes down the chimney. Right. Yeah, well, you know what this is. You wouldn't be here otherwise. The newspaper review live stream, the YouTube live stream, the BBG, not the BBC. I see there's a few of you chatting away there. Nice to see you chatting. Let me just readjust myself there. That's a bit better, isn't it? Yeah. Gorgeous. Right. A number of you mentioned my conversation with Diane, who is from newmoonfarm.ie. Newmoonfarm.ie. Diane, the transsexual woman who was on the programme last night to talk about puberty blocking drugs and how prevalent it is that they are being given to children, and the protocol as Diane described it, where you spend some time with a psychotherapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist to determine what's going on with you, that you think you're in the wrong body. That's just being done away with. And she spoke brilliantly about the massive problems further down the line for people whose puberty has been halted by puberty blocking drugs. She was great, Diane. It was great to have her on, and she spoke very eloquently on that subject, but was very, very interesting then talking about her off-grid lifestyle, coming to Ireland from Wales in the early 1990s, having worked as an engineer and worked for BT, and began to see, I think it's fair to say, that life can be a bit ugly in the big cities and a bit unfulfilling, to say the least. And Diane and her family decamped to just outside Macroom in Cork, where they live a sustainable off-grid life. Now, Diane is no proponent of climate change nonsense at all. Not at all. She doesn't buy that nonsense. But does believe that, we do damage the environment through the way we live, and spoke very, I think, appropriately about that as well. So it was a very good conversation. It was lovely. And if you missed any of it, like all the other programmes, they're on YouTube. You'll find them on this channel, but also on iTunes, Spotify, and the usual places as well. It was nice to get that perspective, because I have a lot to say about these issues, and maybe sometimes I hit the target, but maybe a lot of times I don't, because I don't have any real intimate knowledge of these subjects. So bear in mind, if I'm opining about something in my BBG way, and it's something you know quite a bit about because of your own personal experience, you can just come on the radio programme. And you don't have to wait for a phone-in show to do so. You can say, oh, Richie, you've been going on there about whatever. I know a lot about it. Send me an email. Contact me through Twitter, and I'll get you on. You see, that's the nice thing about the independent media. Anyway, all's good. I might get interrupted now. The future Mrs. Allen has returned to work. Thank God. And the door might be knocked in or hammered by a delivery person or two. She's got a couple of bits and pieces to decorate the house coming through the post in the next couple of days, and Muggins here has got a sign for them. Right. Let's look at the front pages of the newspapers then. Remainers, they're not very happy this morning. We'll come to that in a moment. Yes. Here's the Telegraph then. Johnson to enshrine 2020 Brexit in law. That's what they're not happy about, the Remainers. Because it emerged overnight that Boris Johnson is going to table an amendment to the withdrawal bill that he's going to, for certain, get through Parliament. Why? Well, because he's got an 80-seat majority. He wants to put it in law that there can be no extension beyond December 2020. In other words, we've got 12 months to get a trade deal with the European Union, and if we don't, tough shit, Paddy. We're out. So Remainers are screaming bloody murder this morning. And a number of newspapers are going with the story. There's Johnson pictured with some of the very new and shiny Conservative Party MPs. There's more than 100 first-time MPs in the Conservative Party. And they had a bit of a shindig last night in Westminster on the terrace where they drank English sparkling wine, got pissed right up and sang Rule Britannia. Apparently. I just made that bit up. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. That's what I would have started singing anyway, if I was them. The Financial Times is Johnson vow on Brexit transition raises fears of cliff edge next year. That's what you're hearing now across UK media this morning. You are hearing no deal is back on the table. 7 words you're going to hear all week long. No deal is back on the table. Michael Gove has just been speaking to Adam Bolton on Sky News. I watched a little bit of that. So we don't want no deal. We just don't want to go on forever and ever and ever. We're pretty sure we will get a trade deal with the European Union. Blah, 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 blah. Experts in such matters have repeatedly said, haven't they, that it takes years to negotiate a trade deal. Michael Gove was saying, well, by putting an end to it in December 2020, regardless of where we are, we're focusing minds, said Penfold. Yeah. Right. You see, what I think is going to happen is they want a really quick trade deal with the European Union in order to be done with this once and for all. Johnson is no committed leaver of the European Union. Johnson is no Eurosceptic. They want to be done with it, and they want to move on to different things in 2021 and beyond. Therefore, this is what's going to happen. They're basically going to capitulate to the European Union in terms of close alignment on rules and regulations, food, of course, standards. They're going to allow the European Union and the countries of Europe, they will allow fishing fleets to access waters here. Freedom of movement won't really change. These are the concessions that Johnson is going to make. We know he made some massive concessions already, don't we? In order to get the withdrawal agreement. Of course, one of the concessions he made was to put that border down the Irish Sea to preserve the integrity of the single market on the island of Ireland even. So the UK will never leave the European Union in any meaningful way. So it's interesting what's happened overnight. Tabling an amendment to say that there can be no extension beyond 2020. As I said, a lot of the newspapers covering it this morning. Financial Times. What about the Times? Johnson takes tough new line on Brexit trade talks. And again, you've got a lovely picture there of Boris and his shiny new MPs. Shiny, happy people. They're loving it. And the Express, there you go. Boris to defy EU over Brexit deadline. The Express loves a good weather story as well, doesn't it? It loves the weather. Arctic blast to sweep Britain. It's damn cold today. I don't mind telling you. It is damn cold today. It's cold today. Ice on the footpaths, ice on the roads, and it's going to get colder as the week goes on. At least in the northwest anyway. That's the Express. The iPaper then, The Wrath of Khan. What's that about? I've not been reading that. He's the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Yeah, for better or for worse. The Wrath of Khan. This must be to do with the result, because he's a Labour politician as well. It must be. I don't know, I can't read it. My eyesight is so bad. These are good, but I need reading glasses. That's how old I'm getting now. I need fucking reading glasses. If you want to find out what that is, the iPaper can be read for free online. The Guardian. Long Bailey gets clear run as candidate of Labour left. There's Rebecca Long Bailey on the left and Angela Rayner on the right, pictured, I don't know when, maybe yesterday. They were both tipped to be serious contenders in the upcoming Labour leadership contest. But Rebecca Long Bailey is much beloved by John McDonnell and Jeremy Corbyn and by Momentum. So it is being reported that Angela Rayner, in the green jacket there, or cardi, I think it's a jacket, she's apparently said, I'll tell you what, I won't stand against you. I will stand for deputy leader. That's in The Guardian. And again, the broadcast media covering that extensively this morning. Becky Long Bailey. It's not the BBG, it's the BLB. Becky Long Bailey. Welby, don't expect royals to be saints. That's the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby. The Daily Mail describes this as an extraordinary intervention. Yes, he's given a pass, is this religious dude inside the Mail today. There's the story. We shouldn't ask the royals to be saints. I would agree with that. But I think it's not unreasonable to ask them not to be hanging out with fucking paedophiles. That's not an unreasonable demand. You know, I'm with you on the whole saints bit. God knows I'm no saint myself, you know. Made a lot of mistakes, will make some in the future, but I'm not a fucking paedophile. And I'm not hanging out with one. I'm not going to visit one and staying in his house in New York after he was convicted of being one. I think the Archbishop might have been wise to shut his fucking mouth, I think. It's the establishment. They love a good pedo. They also love a good pedo apologist, don't they? If you want to read that story in depth, go to dailymail.co.uk, which is where you will find it. And there's Tamara Ecclestone. Cretin. Left 50 million quid's worth of gear in her home. And it was robbed. She's going to have some job explaining that to the insurance company. But Tamara, you told us that it was kept at the bank in a safety deposit box. Yeah, you did. You're lying. So a number of papers going with the story this morning that it might have been an inside job. When all else fails, blame your Filipino housemaid. Yeah, that's the Mail. Not saying the Filipino housemaid stole the jewellery, but in a Goodfellas moment, might have tipped off some local gangsters as to when Miss Eccleston wouldn't be home. The Filipino housemaid. Big bally gammon. Racist. That was the Mail. What about the Mirror then? Celebs jet 10 foot from drone disaster. This is a story about a drone getting very close to a plane with some celebrities on it. Big thing now, drones in big cities. People using them, often using them near flight paths. And it's going to be a problem. And I am guessing, I don't think you've got to be Nostradamus here, we will see a very serious incident with a drone and a helicopter or a plane very soon. No doubt in my mind. Nice way of bumping somebody off that. If there was somebody coming into London on a plane, somebody you wanted dead for political or economic reasons, that's a good false flag right there, isn't it? Get a drone up there and then blame some person. Don't blame them that they did it deliberately. Just say that some fucking Egypt, some baldy gammon, some middle-aged guy playing with toys by mistake caused the crash. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. That's in the Mirror today. The Metro, 50 million gems, theft and inside job. Yes, and look who just blew in. It's the Tories. Yeah, Ramoners are going bananas on Twitter this morning. Tory liars is trending. Hashtag Tory liars. Or did you just find out this morning? Did you just learn today that the Tories are liars? And tell me, and you're saying that the political party you support, they're not liars? Really? Can you explain that to me? How Jeremy Corbyn is not a pathological liar? They're all liars. Listen, don't panic. You'll never be prevented from going to live in Europe. You will never be prevented from going to study in Europe. Your goods will not be stopped entering Europe if you are a producer of goods and you sell them in European markets. Nothing is going to change. We're not going to leave the European Union in any meaningful way at all. So if you're a Remoaner, you can rest easy. You've won. We're not leaving. I don't know how many more fucking times I've got to explain that to you until you understand it. Okay? Alright. Here's the Star. I'm not perfect after all, says old jug ears there. Gary Lineker fucked up the Sports Personality of the Year awards. Blew it. You had one job, and that was not to say who the winner was until the end. That's all you had to do. Couldn't be any simpler. And he blew it. As you can see again, the Star going with Ecclestone's daughter's jewellery disaster. Lovely. 9:45 it is, 14 minutes to 10. And the Sun finally then, Santa Chores. There you have it. And there is a picture of Vanessa Feltz, who has never felt. I see what you did there, son. Never felt so sexy. Yeah, Vanessa Feltz. Santa Chores. A guy who won the lottery is doing the jobs that he agreed to do before Christmas. Jobs that he had booked before he won the lottery. He's doing them for free. Brilliant. Good stuff. Bit of festive cheer there. Bit of Christmas generosity. Hey, good morning, by the way. Hi to Chris, who says, Richie, Diane on the show last night gave some good insight into the transgender subject, and her way of living is absolutely amazing. I want to be off grid, says Chris. Well, Chris, you are the master of your own destiny, my friend. If it's something you really want to do, ask the universe. I'm going to go all Noel Edmonds. Bit of cosmic ordering. Which works, by the way, cosmic ordering. Cosmic ordering, I'm living proof that it works. Couple of things when I was younger that I was determined that I would like to do, or at least have a go at. And they were out of my reach, those things. And by thinking about them, by not obsessing about them, but by thinking positively about them, those things came true. Living in Spain and running a bar was one. And being a talk radio presenter was another. These were teenage aspirations. And I took no academic steps to make any of that happen. It happened because I asked the universe. And the universe said, okay. Doesn't work if you want lots of money and stuff like that. Don't sit around asking the universe for money and for material things. But, you know, if it's to help you out of a jam personally with, I don't know, with your relationships, if it's to make yourself healthier, if it's to live more positively, yeah, cosmic ordering is a real thing. Somebody made a lot of money making a book or writing a book called The Secret, didn't they? Which was all the rage a few years ago. But I like a bit of cosmic ordering. I find it to be a real thing. That's just me. Hi to Susan Hayward Tonkin down under. How you doing, Susan? Where it is absolutely scorching, apparently. Very chilly and icy in Elgin in Scotland, according to William. Good morning. Good morning, William. Yeah. Jean-Ann is on the chat. How you doing, Jean-Ann? Thought Diane was very interesting last night, and about time Richie discovered what a polytunnel is, eh? Well, I did kind of know. I could picture it in my mind what it was. Yeah. Yeah. I spent a few weeks on farms when I was younger, and a very good friend of mine, a radio presenter in Waterford, comes from farming stock, and I visited his farm in Wexford. His family's farm in Wexford a couple of times, and I enjoyed that as well. Happy 51st birthday to Sean Hinchcliffe. Happy birthday, Sean. Happy birthday, pal. Here's to many more of them. Hi to Mubal Zizari, who I think might be black, because Mubal says, my white friend says he looks at Britain these days and thinks this is not the country my granddad fought for. Mind you, he was in the Luftwaffe. The old ones are the best ones. Very good. It's freezing in Connemara as well. Freezing. Rebecca Long Bailey. Yeah. Lovely stuff. Okay. Thanks for your comments there and chatting amongst yourselves. It's cold in Wigan as well. Of course it's cold in Wigan. It's cold in Wigan in the middle of July. Right, let's have a look at one or two of the stories inside. As I said, they're all going with this. That's got the Ramoners jumping up and down, screaming like a child throwing a tantrum. He lied! Of course he lied. He lied about everything. He lied about getting a trade deal done in 2020. He knows he can't get a trade deal done in that period of time when you take out holidays and, you know, Parliament breaking up for the summer recess and all the rest of it. Look, he is a pathological liar. But he's not going to get a proper Brexit deal. He's not going to leave. The UK will not properly leave. Brexit in name only is a real thing. Okay. What else have we got? You know the way senior Labour male figures have been championing women in recent days. It has been said many times that it just must be a woman this time. It must be. Well, Melanie Phillips, which will trigger some of you on the progressive left. Melanie writes for The Times. She's a Jewish woman, I do believe. So she might be even more triggering for some of you. And she's written an interesting opinion piece. She's a bit of a pain in the arse, Melanie Phillips, at the best of times, but she does hit the target from time to time. And she's written today a piece that has been headlined. She doesn't write the headlines, mind. Women MPs are becoming dreary automatons, are they? Well, she says, accepting that the Labour Party needs a new leader, Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell says, it's got to be a woman, it's got to be. Why, says Melanie Phillips. His statement is surely extraordinary. After all, it would be unthinkable to say that the new leader has got to be a man. Yet sex discrimination the other way is not only justified, but thought in this case to be obvious. And she goes on to say, McDonnell's sentiments have been echoed by Stephen Kinnock and by Andy MacDonald. This derives from the feminist mantra challenged by few, that society is a patriarchy in which women are oppressed and marginalised by the dominant male sex. I'm willing to guess that there are probably quite a lot of women listening to me. First of all, my demographics show me, as best as we can understand them, that my audience is about 60-40 women, 60% women, 40% men. Yeah, and we've derived that through looking at YouTube analytical figures, YouTube figures, but also tune-in radio figures and figures coming in from iTunes. It's about 60% women listen to the Richie Allen show. I'm willing to bet that probably a lot of women who listen to me, or some anyway, probably agree with the notion that society is a patriarchy in which women are oppressed. So I won't say admit it, ladies, because there's nothing to admit. Your opinion is your opinion, and it is your right to have your opinion. But I'm willing to bet that a lot of women who listen to me probably agree that society is patriarchal and that in it women are oppressed. Got to talk about that on a phone-in sometime soon. So anyway, she's not too happy about this, talks about identity politics and writes interestingly on it in the Times. You can see it there for as long as it's on the screen, because the Times is one of those that you must pay to read, as I tell you all the time. That's interesting. Feminists, let's stay on the subject of feminists just briefly. I've nothing against feminists, by the way, and I'm not trying to curry favour with anybody. You've never heard me bitch about feminists. The enemy of mine enemy is my friend. Maybe, I don't know. We have those of us who talk about safe spaces for women and keeping men who identify as women away from genuinely vulnerable women. I suppose we have a lot in common with feminists, and I have had feminists on the programme. Nothing against them. Ultimately, I don't believe you should start off from the point. Your starting point should never be, well, as a bald Irishman, I think, or as a woman, I think. No, as an individual, think what you think. Don't be influenced by your identity group. And that's how I feel about it. So the feminists are up in arms because also in the Times, Placido Domingo, formerly of Pavarotti, Carreras and Domingo, yeah? The three tenors. Is he one of the three tenors? He is? Yeah, I think he is. He's an octogenarian now, Placido Domingo. Muy bueno. Placido Domingo. But he's been accused of sexual harassment and all sorts of things. But that didn't seem to bother his adoring audience, because he turned up for a performance in Milan and he got a 22-minute standing ovation. There he is. Is he 80? Is he 80? Or is he in his late 70s? The Times doesn't do what the tabloids do. The tabloids always publish ages. They will always give you the age of whomever they're writing about. But I think he's... Oh, yeah, they do. He's 78. There you are. So there you are. 22-minute standing ovation. The audience not too bothered by the accusations made against Placido. So you can hear the progressive screams right across the universe yesterday, presumably. Gender equality is in the news a lot this morning. This is in The Guardian, and the broadcast media is going with this as well. UK falls 6 places in gender equality rankings. We're not doing so good on the old gender equality. And gender pay is an issue. Now, I'm going to say this. For all of my criticism of identity politics and all of that, it's pretty outrageous that you would pay a woman in a company for doing the same job as a man but pay her less. That's unacceptable, isn't it? You couldn't make a justification for that. If her duties are the same, okay, her basic salary must be the same. Bonuses are a different thing, of course. Of course, bonuses are a different thing. Some women will do better, will be a bit more diligent. Some men might be a bit better, be a bit more diligent, a bit more dedicated. But for the basic flat 40 hours, if you're given a Sheila, a little bit less than the bloke that is on the same floor as her and doing the same gig as her, well, that's pretty fucking rotten. A lot of talk about this in the media this morning. And Kay Burley had a kind of hysterically funny interview with a woman who wants to change all of this. And I might bring you some of that on the radio show a little bit later on. I don't mind talking about it, by all means. But some of the solutions they propose to deal with it, well, they're just laughable, really. The Mirror goes big on the Rebecca Long Bailey. There's a typical picture of Rebecca there. That's the mouth that is as wide as the Watford Gap there. You can see it there on the left. Very loud woman. And on the right there, as you can see, is Angela Rayner. The Labour MP Chris Bryant was also on with the Ginger Ninja this morning. Was making the point that he was making what did he do? What did he say exactly? I think he was pretty non-committal, really, on who he would support in the contest, which is coming up in the first weeks of January. At least the beginning of it is anyway. Where are we now? 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. One of the more bizarre tabloid stories this morning. Woman miraculously survives being crushed by a 3-seater sofa thrown from a roof. She was unconscious for 40 minutes under the sofa. Her work colleagues didn't know why she was late back from lunch and went looking for her and found her lying under a sofa that some dickhead had chucked off the top of a roof. Very lucky lady. Very lucky lady. Lucky lady. That's in the Mirror. It's made me laugh this morning. That's just a random story there. What else have we got? What else have we got for you? A couple of big stories, which will take up the last few minutes. Jean Ann will be 70 tomorrow, by the way. Our Jean Ann will be a septuagenarian tomorrow. Fantastic. Everybody who's chatting away, very good. Nice to see you all there. Speaking of Jean Ann, she says you should look up Aaron Russo. Anyone interested in feminism. Snuffed out early, but his understanding was brilliant, says Jean Ann. Yeah, former film producer. And he made From Freedom to Fascism, which I saw when it came out. I was never able, before his untimely demise, to secure an interview with the man. But that was an excellent bit of filmmaking, From Freedom to Fascism. About money, about the Fed, and all the rest of that. Can't have people talking about those things. To be sure. The licence is coming up a lot today on television again. The television licence, the idea is that the Conservative Party is going to have a really hard look at the television licence, which is about £154 and change. As it stands, it is a criminal offence to watch television in this country without having your licence. BBC programmes and stuff. And there's talks of maybe decriminalising it. I'm not too sure about the sincerity of that claim, but it is an interesting one. And Charles Moore, is it in the Telegraph today? It might be. He makes a compelling case. And he says that over 10% of cases being heard annually by magistrates are to do with non-payment of the TV licence. I didn't know it was as high as that, but that's pretty staggering. That Johnson said that we need to disentangle this from the courts, get the courts, get this out of the hands of the courts to free them up to deal with real crime. BBC supporters are saying this is the BBC being attacked by the Conservatives who don't like it. Anyway, I've talked a bit about it on the show. Chatted with Tony Gosling about it last night. I don't believe anybody should be compelled to pay to watch programming rammed down your throat when you don't watch it. Why should anybody be compelled to pay for it? Let them compete with everybody else. If that means they take on advertisements and run advertisements during their programme, so be it. But people shouldn't have to pay for it if they don't want to, I would say. Yeah. And of course, we know a couple of high-profile cases, don't we, dear viewer, in recent years of people who refuse to pay it for conscientious reasons because of the BBC's coverage of September the 11th and other very good reasons as well. So it's an interesting one. Racism is in the news again today, hence the picture there of the gentleman standing in front of the chimpanzee drawings or paintings. This is to do with Italian soccer. Serie A. It's a bit mad, this. I don't know what's going on here. It's often been seen, Italian football, as having a problem with racism. Football clubs there, many of them have fans that would describe themselves as ultras. And some of these ultras, they're violent. Some of these ultras are violent. They're football hooligans. And many of them would see themselves, they would identify as being on the far right. So abusing black and other ethnic minority football players is a normal thing, at least in that section of the overall wider support, right? So there you are. And it's a strange, I don't know what to make of this really. You can see there, it's used images of monkeys, Syria, in their anti-racism campaign. So this is only a wet day basically after football clubs there came together to say we have a problem, we need to deal with it. So these are new No to Racism posters, and they feature three monkeys with painted faces. And, well, Twitter has gone mad. Right? Once again, Italian football leaves the world speechless. It is difficult to see what Syria was thinking. Who did they consult? And this is according to anti-discriminatory body FAIR. They used an artist to design these posters. An artist who apparently uses animal imagery and imagery involving apes and chimpanzees all the time. Kick It Out, which is an anti-discrimination body here in the UK, which sees racism around every corner. It's what it does. Well, it has to justify its existence. Serie A's use of monkeys in the anti-racism campaign is completely inappropriate, undermines any positive intent, and will be counterproductive. Yeah. I don't know what you make of that. We'll leave that one there, but it's making the headlines this morning. Everybody's talking at me. Don't know what they're saying. Everybody's talking about it. Right. And finally for now, before we rush off and do other things, a Brexit supporter has been jailed for 28 days. She's likely to serve only a fortnight in prison. But should she have been jailed? I'm very, very interested in this and a little bit perturbed. I won't say disturbed. I won't give it the snowflake treatment. I won't say I'm disturbed, or I won't say I'm triggered, but I don't like what I'm reading here. Okay. At all. And I'll be interested to get your reaction to this. Might cover it this evening, I'm not sure. I've got plans this evening for guests, but let me bring it up anyway. This is in the Mail, but it's also everywhere. Every newspaper covered this today. Every radio show has talked about this today. Here it is. Brexit supporter is jailed for harassing Remainer ex-MP Anna Soubry, leaving her afraid to be alone in public, with tirades that branded her as a traitor. Now, the woman pictured given the peace sign is obviously the woman who's been sent to prison, because I'm sure you recognise Anna Soubry on the right there. This woman is Amy Dallamura. She's in her mid-50s. And she targeted the former Conservative MP Soubry as she gave an interview to Newsnight. The interview given in Central Lobby in Westminster. You often see interviews being given there. You see the MP being interviewed, and behind the MP you see lots of people running around, some of them spectators who've got passes to the gallery, others various people who work for MPs and all of that. Right. That's where Central Lobby is. She also left Soubry rattled when she yelled questions and refused to leave during a question and answer session at a London hotel a few weeks earlier. Soubry said the second incident, on the 14th of March, took place on the night of a crunch Brexit vote and left her afraid to be alone in public. Donald Trump supporter Dalla Mura of Hove, East Sussex, was convicted of harassment between January and March of this year. That doesn't mean she was convicted sometime between January and March. She was convicted yesterday. But these harassment episodes apparently took place between January and March. She was jailed for 28 days and banned from contacting Soubry for 3 years. What did she do? What did she do and say to warrant a jail sentence? As she was being led away, by the way, she didn't go quietly. You often see in literature, in fictional literature, you often see fictional television programs come quietly. Well, she didn't go quietly. She kicked and fucking screamed and banged and roared and bawled as she was being led away, shouting, "Shame on you." Her supporters put stickers on the glass panels of the public gallery saying "fake justice," shouting "democracy is dead and freedom of speech is dead." What she did, this woman, was film herself shouting at Soubry and calling Soubry a traitor. And she live streamed it on occasion on Facebook. She filmed herself questioning Soubry. She filmed herself accusing Soubry of not respecting the referendum result, the result of 2016. Now, she didn't touch Soubry. She didn't give any impression she was going to touch Soubry. She didn't assault her. She didn't threaten to assault Soubry. She didn't ask that anybody else assaults Soubry. She accosted her on several occasions and gave her tuppence worth, vented her spleen. So passionate was this woman, Dalamura, that she stood against Soubry in the election last week. Soubry lost to Darren Henry from the Tories, but this woman came third apparently. No, she didn't. She came third from last. She came third from last with 432 votes. So she probably lost her deposit. And very interesting that Emma Arbuthnot was the magistrate hearing the case, the chief magistrate. And she said the difference is most people shout and wave flags, but they do not go right into their faces, as was happening in this case. The magistrate said this is not a freedom of speech case. You showed an obsession and fixation with Soubry, which led you to bully, intimidate and harass this now the third occasion. And then Arbuthnot evoked the memory of Joe Cox, which she was inevitably going to do. Joe Cox was murdered about a week before the referendum back in 2016. In very, very, very weird circumstances as well, it must be said. And a guy called Thomas Mayer will never see the light of day again. And he's been blamed for it. Well, he's been convicted for it. And I'm willing to consider that if Thomas Mayer murdered Joe Cox, and he might have done, I'm not sure that he knew too much about it. It's a very mysterious thing what happened to Joe Cox. Joe Cox was murdered, graphically murdered. I'm sure of it. But the circumstances are bizarre. I've talked a lot about it over the years on the radio show. If you want to, go back and listen to it. So she brings up the spectre of Joe Cox, and she says, I think ever since the murder of Joe Cox, MPs no longer feel able to put up with sustained intimidation. People like you stop ordinary, decent people from becoming MPs. This damages our democracy, because who would want to put up with the sort of harassment that Ms. Soubry suffered from January to March this year? From what I can understand, this woman, Dalamura, accosted Anna Soubry at Westminster and at public events attended by Anna Soubry. She didn't leave anything to the imagination in terms of how she felt about Soubry and how she felt about Soubry campaigning to effectively ignore the democratic vote of the referendum. But she's not been following Soubry around town as she's been going about her business. She's not been following Subri when Subri's with her family. She's not gone and knocked on her door. She hasn't put her address on the internet. She has gone to public places where Subri has been in attendance, and she has screamed at her, maybe you could have a look at maybe how you speak to people, maybe. But does it merit a 28-day jail sentence? By all accounts, her barrister, her solicitor, her team are absolutely shocked at the jail sentence. They've said that she's going to appeal. And a number of people have said that this is a serious blow to free speech in this country when somebody can be locked up for the reasons I've just given. Not threatening, not giving any real grounds for the subject of your ire to believe that you represent a physical threat to them. You're not asking anybody else to be physically threatening to them. You're not following them around. You're not going to their house. All these things I just said. You're just absolutely pissed right off that as an elected representative who, before the referendum, like everybody else, said they would honour the result, hasn't done that. So when she appears publicly where she'll be talking about Brexit, you decide to turn up and heckle her. I think that's what she's done, this woman. I think she's heckled Subri. I think she might have gone a little bit OTT in the heckling. I'm not an unreasonable man. I'm willing to concede that. But the fact that she has been put into prison for probably 10 days to 2 weeks, well, it's a fucking outrage, isn't it? It's astonishing that there hasn't been more of an outcry today against that. And when it has come up this morning on the radio shows, and it has, Joe Cox. This woman might have grounds to sue for libel. This woman, Dalamuri. What the fuck did they keep mentioning me in the same breath as what happened to Joe Cox for? Why are they doing that? I think Subri is a fucking traitor. And I told her as much. But that's about the size of it, she might say. So it's an interesting one. And it's in the papers today. Right. Rather newsy and a rather more serious newspaper roundup this morning than you might ordinarily expect. But some interesting things in there today. 5 o'clock. Mads Palsvig, who's an old friend of mine from Denmark and who has not been on the radio show now for over 2 years, maybe closer to 3 years. Mads is going to join me tonight from Copenhagen. I'm looking forward to that. I'm pretty sure I'll have a guest in hour one as well. And as usual, we'll have a news roundup. We'll have a bit of fun with that. That'll be the radio show at 5 o'clock on the usual channels. Until then, thanks for watching this nonsense. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Wrap up well. If you're in Blighty, it's bloody cold. I understand it's cold across the Irish Sea as well. Wrap up well, and we'll chat again a bit later on. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.